Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing a full review of the most recent Souls-like by 505 Games called Wuchang Fallen Feathers. This game is a Souls-like action role-playing game that came out on July 24th of 2025, and as of today I put in about 71 hours of gameplay and I'm on New Game Plus. I was very excited to play it before it was actually released, and from what I saw in the trailers and reviews, it looked really good. The YouTubers I watched seemed to give it a good review the day or two before it came out, and which made me want to play it even more. The day it was released, though, I was about to buy it on Steam when I saw the reviews, and in the first hour it was out, the reviews were mostly negative, and not even an hour later it changed to overwhelmingly negative. And a lot of the reviews were based on how bad the game ran on their computer, and apparently a lot of people were dealing with stuttering and choppiness, and then some people saying the combat was clunky, it didn't feel right. But since I've been on Steam, I've never seen a game come out that had that bad of reviews. I was so disappointed considering how excited I was to play it. But honestly, I tried keeping the good reviews I saw on my YouTube in my head and wanted to try it so I could base my own opinion on it. Overall, I ended up deciding to buy it, and I decided if for some reason it runs bad or I don't like it within the first 2 hours, then I would return it. After I tried it for about an hour, I realized I really liked it, honestly. Even considering the amount of Souls-likes that have came out within the last year, I'm usually never burnt out on them. A lot of people said in this game was a lot similar to some recent ones that have came out recently, like Black Myth Wuchang, which I somewhat agree with, but this game was in development far before that game came out, so I agree it may be similar, but I feel like every Souls game take inspiration from other games. I ended up giving this game a chance just to see what it was like and if I enjoy it. As for the story, I'll give you guys a whole rundown on it. The game follows the main character you play as, who is named Bai Wuchang, and she is a female pirate who navigates the supernatural horrors stemming from the mysterious feathering disease. The feathering disease is an affliction spreading through the lands, causing the gradual decline and collapse of society and its environment. It is set in an alternate history, and it's a representation of Shu during the late Ming Dynasty. It explores a region ravaged by war and plague, and the story is told as an alternate history centered on the disease. In the game, the disease drives its victims insane and gradually transforms them into monstrous beings. And the main character you play as, Bai Wuchang, suffers from amnesia and is afflicted with the disease. According to the director and the producer of the game, Zaya Siwan, explains that their portrayal of the historical events aligns with the mainstream historiography, but the game world diverges due to supernatural forces that reshaped history a millennia ago. Also, he says that it explains this through their world building, which traces back to the era of King Duyu of Shu. Overall, my first experience with the game was great. I really enjoyed the combat and the dodging mechanic, and there's a lot of reasons that this game is good, and I'll be going into all of them, and I'll be going into the somewhat negative side of it as well. The game and mechanics are pretty similar to a lot of other games I played. Overall, I feel like the combat in the game is fairly smooth. Right bumper is attack, B is dodge, and square is heal. It's fairly simple, and there's nothing about this game that is too complex to figure out. Also, players can customize their character's appearance in the beginning of the game with a variety of outfits and armor, and it allows for a fashion-conscious playstyle, which I thought was pretty cool. I will say that the dodging mechanic in this game is something you have to get good at, and the cool thing with this game is that it rewards you for good dodging, which is called shimmering, and when you time your dodge at the last possible moment to evade an enemy attack, you perform what's called a shimmer, and successfully performing a shimmer rewards you with a stack of Skyborn Might, which is a crucial combat resource. Skyborn Might is what you use to cast spells and do special attacks with your weapons, so the better you are at shimmering, the more you can use your special attacks for spell castings. And the dodging is sort of like a slide, like Bloodborne or playing as the Duchess in Night Rain. Also, there's a currency in the game called Red Mercury, and this is pretty common Souls-like stuff. You get Red Mercury by defeating enemies or by grabbing items that you find from enemies that you kill, or that you find on the ground, which a few are called Red Mercury Buds, Red Mercury Shoots, or Growing Red Mercury. You can use the Red Mercury to upgrade your character or to buy items from merchants, which I'll be going into, and you can also lose your Red Mercury that you have by dying, and based on how much madness you have will determine how much Red Mercury you will lose when you die, and I'll go over madness here in a minute. To upgrade your character, you're going to need red mercury, and you use what's called the impetus repository, and it's also known as the skill tree. Honestly, it looks pretty limited to start with, but once you unlock the first node of each branch in the tree with your currency, you'll realize that the branches open up quite a bit. There's 6 branches, and 5 of them revolve around the different weapon types, and they will unlock as you receive the first type of each weapon. And there are 5 different weapon types in this game, which are long swords, one-handed swords, spears, axes, and dual blades. And you have 2 slots for each weapon as your primary and as your secondary. Initially, you start out with the Cloud's Frost Edge longsword, which is a good starting weapon, but not long into it, you begin to find more different weapons of each class. I myself enjoyed using the spear, and I ended up using it until I finished the game of my first playthrough. Not sure what got me stuck on the spear. I feel like it was more or less just me figuring it out and then not switching weapons and just getting so used to using it. And there was a good amount of each weapon to choose from as you progress through the game, and each weapon can be used to execute light attacks, heavy attacks, charge heavy attacks, discipline skills, and weapon skills. The weapon skills are unique to each different weapon, and discipline skills are tied to the different weapon types. There's a good amount of discipline skills that can be unlocked with the skill tree, and I won't waste too much of your time and go into every little detail about it, but I'll explain a couple more things about the mechanics and the main things you're going to want to know about the game. The next thing I'll talk about is the benedictions, and benedictions are equipable weapon charms that provide various enchantments, buffs, or boosts to your weapons, and they come in 3 different types, which are called Oath, Memory, and Wisdom, and equipping 3 benedictions from the same set activates a special effect, adding to another layer of customization to your build. And the next thing I'll talk about is the Bone and Stone Needles. Bone and Stone Needles are used in the timbering system to enhance weapons with various effects, and Bone Needles are primarily unlocked by progressing through the Impetus repository skill tree, while Stone Needles are found as drops from specific enemies, including inner demons, and they have different status effects on each one that you can use on your weapons, such as Fire, Lightning, Frostbite, Blight, Corruption, Poise Break, Arcane, Magic, Leech, and Feathering. Now I'll be going over the status effect called Madness, and it builds up as you defeat humanoids and when you die, and every time you die or kill an enemy you gain a little bit more madness, and it can be a good thing and a bad thing. The status effect enhances your attack power, unlocks unique abilities, but it also increases your damage taken by enemies, and it causes you to drop more red mercury when you die. When you have full madness and when you die, you'll end up coming across what's called an inner demon, and you will have to kill this enemy to be able to get your red mercury back. Sometimes you can lead the inner demon to nearby enemies that are aggroed, and you can get them to attack each other, which is nice, and it is a more safe way to go about killing the inner demon. Moving on to level design in the game. The areas itself were awesome. The game contained 5 main regions with multiple sub-regions and locations and a few hubs for the NPCs. The one thing that kind of got me lost literally were the pathways. They were just somewhat frustrating, and it makes it more of a non-linear game based on how many ways there were to go sometimes. It was a little annoying when I would follow a path which would then lead to a fork in the road of 2 different paths, and I would take one direction and it would lead to another fork in the road, and it would just made me feel kind of super overwhelmed in my opinion. I do like being able to explore different areas and not just having one straight path, but this seemed like a little too much, and sometimes these paths would lead to dead ends with loot at the end, or they would essentially end up being interconnected and looping back to another one of those original paths. There is no map in this game to figure out where you are, which I understand considering most Souls-likes don't. I'm the type that likes to explore every bit of every single area, so it took me a while of exploring each area to not get lost and to figure out where I'm at. But other than that, the levels were very well done. They were diversive and most of the time had totally different environments. There are a lot of NPCs in this game, multiple quest lines, which some are important, some are not. Some of the quests just reward you with a consumable of some sort, and some of the quests determine your ending, but I can tell you, you have plenty of NPCs to interact with in this game. I myself enjoyed a lot of the characters you would meet along the way. Thinking I had started every quest halfway through the game and then realized I didn't backtrack and was locked out of one that I had already started. So beware of this, but I feel like this is pretty normal in Souls-likes. Moving on to the bosses of the game. This game had some of the best boss fights I've had since Kazan, and there's a total of 24 bosses in this game, and about 70% of the boss fights took me multiple attempts to beat. And I don't know if it was just me, but I struggled with some of them for quite some time. Like, don't get me wrong, I love a good struggle with the boss, but goddamn. I feel like the bosses in this game are varied and different, and they're also very impressive. They have designs that fit into both monstrous and warrior categories, and the bosses in the game are considered challenging too, especially for people who are new to the Souls-like genre. I struggled with the majority of bosses in this game, but it was very, very rewarding learning their movesets and just getting better at the mechanics overall. Some bosses have aggressive attack patterns and difficult to read telegraphs, and the ability to chain attacks without interruption. Some of the bosses have attacks with delayed hitboxes too, or inconsistent tracking, which makes them harder overall. The first boss that I really struggled with was the Gluttonous Monstrosity, and just so you're aware, this is an early game boss, so I wouldn't consider it a spoiler. I tried this boss for over an hour before I was able to finally beat it, and another boss in the Tang Emperor's Palace had me struggling for like days. 2 days it took me to beat this boss. So many people said this game was easy, which I highly disagree with. Maybe the enemies around the maps are easy for the most part, but these bosses are something else, man. Like, granted, I didn't use any summons for any of the fights, which made it a lot more difficult. And another thing that made it hard was how important it is to manage your stamina in these boss fights, or just in combat in general. A lot of the deaths of mine were from running out of stamina. And one thing that was a little unfortunate was that there wasn't a quick way to get out of falling down, like rolling away or jumping back up from an enemy or a boss. Like, I believe you can roll back sometimes, but it's not that easy, and when you fall, it takes a good few seconds to get up, it seems like. And the enemy can just knock you down again and again, and it really makes it hard to recover from falling down sometimes. As for the graphics in the game, overall they were very good, and I felt like it looked great. I have a 4060 RTX on an AMD Ryzen 5 and 5600 6-core processor on 16 gigabytes of RAM, and for my first playthrough I ran the game on DLSS. Overall graphic quality was on high and disabled VSync and did a couple other things. They do have a lot of extra settings for your preferences. Console players can choose from prioritize FPS, balance, or prioritize graphics modes with the option to lock FPS. Also, PC players can fine-tune their settings like anti-aliasing, shadow quality, and global illumination to really make their visual experience as good as they want it. The game's performance, it can be affected by settings like motion blur, DLSS, like I said, and texture quality. The cutscenes were very, very good looking, I felt like. I feel like the environment and the protagonist had a lot of good detail, and the environments in the game had a lot of popping colors, and the NPCs looked pretty good as well. Like I said, the cutscenes were very impressive. I was running the game on a 1080p monitor, and overall, I thought it looked pretty well. It probably would have looked better on a PS5 Pro or something, but the game had blending, vibrant colors and intricate level design, with also including dark fantasy elements of like the Souls-like genre. This game utilizes a rich color palette, and it's inspired by the city of Chengdu and the Sichuan province, which is where the developer is based, apparently. I've yet to play it on consoles though, but I read that using the lock FPS thing can minimize but not eliminate frame rate hitches and stutters, which in the beginning people seem to have a lot of issues with this, and I'll admit there was some moments where the game just randomly looked super grainy and would start running slow and laggy, and it would clear up for 10 seconds sometimes. And I didn't have this issue happening a ton in the beginning or the middle. It mainly happened towards the end of the game, which was very frustrating, and after putting the graphics settings back to default and changing it from DLSS to TSR, it seemed to help a lot. And I did upgrade my drivers too, which I'm sure helped. I've really only had the stuttering laggy gameplay happen in one other game, which was Silent Hill 2, so it's kind of rare for me. But the audio and the music in this game, it was awesome in my opinion. I feel like the soundtrack was stellar. It had great use of traditional Chinese music instruments, which made it feel really unique atmosphere. And some people complained about the inconsistent volume levels with voice audio and music, which I did see this happen maybe once, But honestly, I think the nothing beats FromSoft music in their games. But overall, I enjoyed the soundtrack in it, and voice actors did a great job in this game, in my opinion. It felt real and genuine. You can play the game with Chinese language dubbed over, which I think is awesome, and I'd love to try that, honestly. Apparently, due to the such horrible reception of the game at launch, the creator gave everyone who bought the game the soundtrack for compensation. I believe this was only on Steam, which was nice, honestly. As far as replay ability and length of the game, like I said, I'm already on my second playthrough, and now that I know the mechanics and I'm familiar with all the areas in the game, it won't take me near as long as my first playthrough, which is around 55 to 60 hours, including all the boss attempts. This game is long, though. Before I played it, I read that it would be around a 30 to 35 hour game, and I feel like it could be that long if you didn't struggle with all the bosses and or use summons, and didn't explore every nook and cranny of the game. But I enjoyed every minute of it, though, and did not get tired of it, except for the dying over and over, which is kind of normal in these sort of games. So I really hope the reception of the game is turned around, which I feel like it has. People actually like this game now, and people have given it a chance. And I admit, maybe they should have been a little bit more thorough before launching it, considering how many people have had issues with it in the beginning, and it should have been fixed before dropping it. But I've heard that console hasn't had that many issues as far as performance goes. But overall, I love this game. It wasn't my game of the year, but I definitely will be enjoying this playthrough that I'm doing on New Game Plus. The combat, the bosses, the levels, all very good in my point of view. And it may be easy to compare this to a lot of other games, but I think that they did some cool things here. And if you're interested in giving it a try, I myself would recommend it. And if you'd like a good challenge with hard bosses, a lot of quest lines, and cool environments, then this is definitely the game for you. The dodging mechanic, unique spells, and discipline moves are very satisfying. And maybe you'll mess around with some different builds, or maybe you'll be stuck on one the whole game like me. I gave this game a 8.5 out of 10, and I'd like to hear what you guys, if you guys played it, and if you did, like what you thought of it. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on it, and if you guys enjoyed this review, please consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel if you haven't, and if you think I deserve it. I put a lot of time and effort into these review videos, and I really like doing them, and I plan on doing more. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review of Wuchang Fallen Feathers, and I appreciate you watching.